You know, I blame one of our guests today. Well, one of our guests. I blame our guest today, Scott Reynolds, for really jinxing the Bucs here with that first loss last week's show. Scott, when we get to our preview pick segment, we are going to have a serious talk about you jinxing the Bucs. We'll get to all
some
that.
More bad news for you, Garrett.
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. We'll get to all that and more on this week's episode of Bucs Bonus.
Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, the home of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. This is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now.
Welcome to the Stream Center here, WFLA, your official home for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am Garrett Phillips, your host, here with Aileen Hnatiuk, as always. And, of course, joining us this week, as always, the man from Pewter Report itself, Scott Reynolds. Scott, who, by the way, you know, again, I just mentioned it, a little bit of a bone to pick with you because I was at that game last week, and I remember only one of us predicting a loss for the home team. That would be you, sir. Do you have anything to say for yourself in defense?
Yeah, I should have done a better job on that blocked punt. I didn't get my guy, and he came through and, just took it right off Riley Dixon's foot. So I apologize for that. So blame me for that loss.
You know, at least you're taking responsibility.
Maybe I jinxed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that we could probably.
I was like, they're gonna win.
Yeah, we could probably all point to multiple different jinxes, if you will. But really, as Scott mentioned, at the end of the day, it is just what has become, unfortunately, a recurring theme for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is a bit of a special teams bugaboo. Scott, I'm assuming, right? I know you and Aileen, both of you, get to talk to Todd Bowles throughout the week, get to be at One Buc Place. Tell me, please, one of you, tell me that something is being done about this, frankly, embarrassing special teams work that we have seen these past couple weeks.
Todd Bowles is beginning to truly hate the punting position. Go back to last year. He went through 3 different punters, and he was excited that he finally found one in Riley Dixon. The problem is he's not too excited now because in 4 games, there's been 2 blocks. So part of the problem is Riley Dixon, 32-year-old guy. He's up to 9 blocked punts now in his career. He's only been in the league for 10 years, so it's about 1 per year. He's got 2 this year already, though. And he's got this kind of slow wind-up with his punts. The protection up front has not been great. The Bucs have kind of been out-schemed, Aileen, and so part of this goes on special teams coordinator Thomas McGahee. The other part, too, is that they've got to get better blocking up front. We saw Evan Deckers, the long snapper, kind of whiff on his block, and that just led to an awful 7-0 start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, trailing the Eagles early with being down a touchdown. And were really chasing those points the entire game.
Yeah. And I can't remember if it was you that asked him, but they were like, hey, what needs to be done for this to change? And he said pretty much everything. Everything needs to be done. Like you said, protection, Riley Dixon, the coaching. We're looking at every aspect of why this is going wrong. So you can't help but... I'm an optimist, but trust him in that something will be done, whether it's, letting Riley go, letting the coaches go, or switching some things around. And because it's become an actual problem. It's not just, one off. That's not great. It's become a legitimate issue.
Yeah. And Garrett, they did bring in 2 punters on Tuesday, and we'll see if they end up signing one of those. My guess is they probably will, at least on the practice squad.
Bring in some competition.
And then it might be a carousel again at the punter position. It was last year. So unfortunately, this is really the bad part of special teams. Otherwise, they've got a really good return game. Cam Johnson is electric as a punt returner. Chase McLaughlin hits a 65-yarder, longest in franchise history, the longest outdoor field goal in NFL history. And then he has a chip in from 58 yards after that. So at least he's corrected his part of the game. But if they can get the punting situation fixed, special teams might actually be special in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, I joked about it, I think, after the week 2 game, because we had kind of that week 1 scare from Chase McLaughlin. And then week 2, he got a little bit better. I think he still missed a kick, but he got a little better. And then we started to see Riley Dixon, who had a great week 1, kind of start to slip into week 2, and then obviously into these past 2 weeks. I had kind of made that joke, and maybe this is my fault. Maybe I jinxed them. I made that joke that you can't have a good kicker and a good punter in Tampa Bay.
This is all you, Garrett.
It's
Phillips.
true. It sounds like it's you to blame.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There it is. And so
Blame everyone but Aileen.
Right. You get off scot-free.
there you go. Yeah. So hopefully we get something fixed on that end of the ball. I mean, we've got to do something because, as you mentioned, right, you're chasing the points all game. You're down 7-0 in a hole early. If you take away that 7 points, it's really a kind of like a playing for a field goal there at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't have to worry about going 4-on-4 on that 4th and long pass. You have that chance to at least tie the game. And based on the way that defense was playing in the second half, you can't tell me that if they go to overtime, that Tampa doesn't have one of the best, if not the best shot to win that game. Let's talk about actually that, because it was a 24-6 halftime lead for the Eagles, especially. What a great kick by Chase, and an incredible kick. And then in the second half, this is a stat that is mind-boggling to me. Jalen Hurts goes 8-0 in passing, not completing a pass in the second half, and they still win the game, which is just, oh, come on. As a Bucs fan, we've had some bad beats in our history.
Well, Scott's been saying it all along. It was a tale of two halves.
Oh, absolutely.
It really was.
And so
to have Jalen Hurts go 15 of 16 in the first half and then 0 of 8 in the second, to have the Eagles have 201 yards at halftime and then finish the game with 200.
Yeah.
They lost a yard in the second half. It was incredible. And, I just, you have to wonder if the defense had shown up at 1 o'clock rather than like 2:15, they might be 4-0 right now.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Do we think that it was more about halftime adjustments, that Todd Bowles and the defense sat down and were able to say, hey, 100%. This is what's working and this is what isn't? Or was it more that the Eagles just kind of let off the gas a little bit?
No, I think it was the changes, and I think that's one of the positive things about this team is that they get blown out in the first. You think they're going to get blown out in the second. You think this game is just going to go right down the toilet, but they make those halftime adjustments, and that is a sign of a good team. And again, we've been talking about the last, the first 3 games, and they're able to win these close games. That's a sign of a good team. But also, what's not a sign of a good team is starting off the way they did. So if they can start off fast, I think that was kind of an issue for them last year, right, Scott? That was I feel like we talked about that last year too. There were a few games where I feel like they started off slow. So it's been a little bit of an issue the last few years, but halftime adjustments were really impressive. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right, Aileen. When you look at what Todd Bowles was doing in the first half, blitzing a lot, and they weren't working. They weren't getting there. And what he was doing is he was taking his defensive ends, his edge rushers, and stunting and twisting them inside. The problem is that left the defensive tackles on the outside. Big guys like Vita Vea and Greg Gaines.
Jalen Hurts
were tasked, with the job of keeping contain on Jalen Hurts. And you guys know that's not a great strategy because Hurts is a lot faster than Vita Vea or Greg Gaines, and he scrambled for 42 yards in the first half and kept drives alive. So then we saw in the second half, they pretty much stopped blitzing. They dropped guys in coverage. They rushed forward. They ended up getting 2 coverage sacks by Vita Vea, and then basically locked down A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Those wide receivers were erased. Great job by the Bucs cornerbacks, and Todd Bowles and company made those correct adjustments. And Aileen, you're spot on. This Buccaneer team has been outscored in the first quarter 34-13 in these 4 games. And I hate to break it to you, but the Seattle Seahawks are averaging 8.8 points in the first quarter. That's second best in the league right now.
Yes.
Tampa Bay is way down the rankings, averaging 3.3 points in the first quarter. The Seahawks are used to getting off to hot starts. That's why they're 3-1. Tampa Bay is lucky to have rebounded from bad first quarters, and that's why they're 3-1.
So who wins the game is who wins the first quarter.
It might be
5.
next week,
I think that's
it
what
very well
week
could
5
be.
comes down to.
Hopefully that's not who gets a punt blocked return for a touchdown again.
And Seattle's actually blocked a punt and a field goal this year,
which is worrying, and we will get to that when we talk more about the Seattle game coming up. But before we move off of that Eagles game, I do want to talk about maybe the most, other than the L in the column on the schedule, maybe the most important thing that happened in this game, which is just, I don't get it. I don't know if One Buc Place is built on a graveyard and there's a bunch of spirits that are just kind of infecting people. But another slew of injuries that came out of this game. We're talking about Benjamin Morrison. We're talking about Jamel Dean at cornerback. We're talking about Hassan Reddick, maybe Bucky Irving. Is there legitimate concern right now about any of those players maybe actually missing this game, or missing more than this game, missing a couple of weeks?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's going to depend on how many of those guys practice, what the results of those MRIs will be. We're recording this on Tuesday, and we may not know the answer to some of those questions until Wednesday, when we get the chance to talk to Todd Bowles. And Bowles might even not know until Friday or Saturday, because so many times we've seen, like, go back to week 1, Vita Vea, he was a game-time decision on Sunday to play with that foot injury, right? Same thing with Luke Gedeke with his foot injury and Houston in week 2. So there might be a couple of game-time decisions for some of these players. We didn't really know until Friday that Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin were actually going to be a go. We felt that was going to be the case. That seemed like the case. Same with Baker Mayfield. So we may not know for several days who's going to play, and more importantly, Todd Bowles and Josh Grizzard might not know either.
No, it's actually so true, and I think a lot of people forget that injuries are so like they're so different for every single person, and if it's a bad injury, we'll know, right? But it's probably a good sign if he's like, yeah, we'll see towards the end of the week, because there's obviously more likely a chance that they, will play. But truly, you don't know until like the day before, because they're trying to fit a month or 2 or 3 of recovery in 3 or 4 days. So it's like every single day is like a week or 2. And, we want to know, fans want to know, but the reality is you're not going to until Friday or Saturday.
Well, while we wait for those results, obviously, from the MRIs, while we wait to see what the practices look like, one thing I do want to talk about is 2 guys that did return. We've already mentioned them, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs. We're going to talk about their performance and how we're hoping to see more return performances from some other guys who haven't gotten to play when we get back after this. Welcome back into the Stream Center here for your week 5, I guess, week 4. I don't know. Do we number these based on the game before?
Week 4 recap, week 5 preview.
After. Right, there you go. You see, this is why Aileen gets paid more than me, because she knows how to do this.
I don't know about that.
All right, here with the Bucs Bonus, obviously Aileen Hnatiuk and Scott Reynolds here joining me. We are talking about, of course, this Eagles game and all the injuries that they have suffered, again, unfortunately, due to another game. But what we didn't get to really dive into is some of the guys that came back, and specifically, all right, 2 big names, Tristan Wirfs, Chris Godwin. If you're a Bucs fan, you know these guys, you love these guys. We got to see both of them here, and I just want to talk a little bit about what you guys thought, because as I'm watching it, right, I'm thinking one of these players came out and looked kind of like his old self. The other one looked like he needs to kind of shove some rust off a little bit, which is to be expected. This is not in any way blaming anybody, but I just want to see, am I right in that? Am I right there, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Aileen, I think you're going to agree too. Tristan Wirfs kind of looked like old Tristan. He was the best offensive lineman out there for Tampa Bay. Even was picking a fight to help Baker Mayfield out against Quinyon Mitchell and Moro Ojomo.
Attaboy.
And I thought it was more likely, because he had a minor knee scope in the summer.
Say,
that he was going to kind of return to form a lot faster. And with Chris Godwin, you didn't see that burst. You didn't see him really snap off the routes. This was probably more mental than physical for Chris Godwin, because this is the first time he could get that ankle rolled up on. He could get tackled, right? You're not going to tackle Chris Godwin in practice. He's been practicing for about a month with the team, but you're not going to really know how that ankle is going to respond when you cut and juke and plant and leap and get tackled until game day. And we got to game day. The good news is Chris Godwin got out of there unscathed. The bad news is, looked like he was rusty. Aileen had a couple drops, but you got to get through this first game to get to the second one to show improvement, and then you got to build on that for the third one, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think, again, in a perfect world, we would expect him to be himself, right? But he hadn't played football in what? Like
almost
10, 11 months. So you can't expect him to be his old self, because it's Chris Godwin, but also realistically, like, no, because he hasn't been out there. Like you said, he hasn't been taking hits, and I don't know I don't know if, trainers or himself, if it's mental and he doesn't want to do certain things because, the guy this is like how many injuries for him now, right? Like
2 major ones for sure.
Exactly. So you wonder, is he holding back a little bit? I mean, probably not, because this is a highly competitive athlete. This is the NFL. When you say go, you go. But I don't think it's anything that is needed to be concerned about. I think it's just a little bit of rust. I think you're right. I think he picks it up in week 3 week 5.
Second
week
game
3,
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eileen's wanting to rewind before the loss to be like, can we get a do-over on week 4?
Thanks for that save, Garrett.
Not a
so
problem.
I think we'll see him, inch back to his old self in week 5. And Tristan Wirfs, as you mentioned, we knew he would be fine, just because his injury wasn't as bad as Chris's. But I talked with Chris. Scott and I both talked with everybody after the game. But one thing that stood out to me that Chris said, because I asked him, I was like, how'd it feel to be back? Like, what was your thoughts, out in the field? And he was like, it's bittersweet because we lost. I don't really know how to feel because we lost, and I didn't play as well as I wanted to. But my son was there. It's the first time my son watched me. My wife was there. Mariah was there. Ace was there. And it was just this.
And the first time he got to have the junior on the back of his jersey, which he has talked a lot about.
Exactly. So many really emotional components for him. You wonder too. It was a lot. I think a lot were on his shoulders in week 4, and I think less are
kind of got this out of the way now, right?
Right, exactly.
And I think that's a good thing for him.
And you guys
forward.
did mention, of course, this is his second major injury after the last one, right? It kind of took half of a season for him to really start trusting that leg again. And
that's a great point, Garrett. And he was 26 at that time. Now he's 29, right?
Yeah.
So the older you get, the longer it takes.
I'm 29, Scott. Relax.
I do wonder, right?
I'll trade you.
I do wonder if maybe we can expect him to, now that he's done it once, maybe he will get to trusting it again a bit quicker. But again, as you mentioned, it's been a couple of years. He's now older. Your body doesn't heal quite as quickly.
Yeah. What I liked is he wasn't on a pitch count, and he played a lot. And he played 80% of the snaps. So I wasn't expecting that. So I think that's a good sign.
And he had a good,
forward.
I want to say it was like 30% target share. They were throwing at him. So they definitely were trying to use him in all facets of the game, which we love to see. And of course, I believe the last time he came back from injury, when Mike's like 7 years in a row of having hamstring injury, being out, he was out this game. When Chris had to come in and play on that, recovered leg the last time, and Mike was out, he had to be the guy that kind of did it all, right?
That's
now
right.
You've got a guy like Emeka Egbuka on the other side who another, 101 yards, a touchdown, an incredible, crazy 77
yards.
Touchdown, which was just absolutely stunning to watch in person. I was there. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
You have a guy on the other side that can at the very least kind of, he's not Mike Evans yet. He doesn't exactly demand that type of attention and respect yet. Right.
Soon.
He's going to get there sooner rather than later. But at least you have a guy that is getting there, can kind of simulate that, taking the spotlight off of you a little bit to give you more time to kind of, again, grow back into the role that you were used to. But as you mentioned with Tristan Wirfs, when he came back, right, obviously maybe the biggest story of the offense this first 4 weeks has been the offensive line, and been how different each week has looked with your offensive line. I feel like every game you have had changes. This is the first time had an offensive line that started and ended, I think, all the way through the game with the same configuration. And Tristan coming back, getting to move Graham Barton back to center, it helped. Baker looked fairly comfortable for most of the game. There was a big sack right there at the end of the fourth quarter that obviously didn't look great. And as you mentioned, though, as well with Tristan, is that now that you have him back, he kind of brings something to the mentality of the offensive line that maybe you're missing with guys like Mock and Gadeke, who are really kind of like those maulers with that attitude that they have. Now that Tristan's back, at least you're kind of getting some of that again.
I agree. And to me, Graham Barton looked rusty at center, right? So there's a little bit of a chain reaction, too. I think Graham Barton was not a great game for him. And, by the way, you go from being a blindside pass protector, no pressure, right, for the first three games of the season, Eileen, to your first game back, you're only going up against Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter on the inside, so not an easy task for him to transition there. It's been a month since Graham Barton has snapped the ball. And remember, he played, Eileen, I think a series or two in the preseason, and that's it. So this was kind of like week 1 for him.
Yeah. And center's
in
not
week 4,
an easy
playing
job.
center.
Yeah, and center's not an easy job either.
No.
Yeah, I just think a lot of it'll be brushing off the rust going into week 5. But hey, week 5, Emeka Egbuka, he's going back home in Washington, so that'll be fun to see too.
That's right.
And we're going to talk more about, obviously, the Seahawks game. And we're going to get to the predictions. Scott, listen, before we go to this last break and we go to our picks this coming segment, I just need you to do me a favor, man. Come on, give me a little bit of optimism, because last time, I'm not saying you jinxed them.
Can't do it.
But
Sorry.
you jinxed them.
I'm letting you know early so you can prepare yourself.
All right, well, Scott is going to disappoint
Maybe Scott's just smart.
Maybe he's just, Aileen,
hope I'm wrong.
Sorry.
Get my back here. I need your help.
Okay, yeah, he got me.
Scott's going to
Scott,
disappoint me.
Come on, Scott.
Scott's going to disappoint me when we come back from this break. Welcome back to the Stream Center. This, of course, Week 4 review, Week 5 preview. Aileen coaching
look
me
at
up
that rhyme. Come on now.
as we go here at Bucs Bonus. Garrett Phillips with Aileen Hnatiuk and Scott Reynolds. Look, before we move on, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and move on, and let's talk about something. I just got to get it over with. I got to peel it off like a Band-Aid, because we're going to pick this game. We're going to pick the game against the Seahawks. They're going to Seattle, right?
And I'm going to hurt you, Garrett. I'm sorry.
Hold on. Before we get there, let me just make an appeal.
I have an idea before you answer, Scott.
Because it's this game where they were back home for San Fran, a flex game out in the 4 p.m. slot, which is nice. And then we've got Detroit, which I believe is also on the road. We've got to win like 2 of these games, right? You've got to be able to split this series with the Eagles game included, a 2-2, if you want to kind of go into the back half of your season and feel good about it.
Yeah.
Scott?
To me, if you're talking about Seattle, San Fran, Detroit, which 2 games are the most likely you're going to win? I think it's got to be Seattle and San Fran, right?
I'm going to say San Francisco and Detroit. What about you, Aileen?
I wanted for these predictions for you, because I'm superstitious, to say that Seattle would win, and then I say that the Bucs lose, because last week we had it swapped. Therefore, we cannot say the same thing again.
Yeah.
So if we switch it, we break the bad juju.
I see. Okay. All right. I can't do that, though. I have to stay true to my preseason picks. I'm sorry, y'all. But
All right.
I had this team starting off 3-0.
All right, yes.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
You were correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stop being right,
and
Scott.
then I have them losing the next 2, and then I have them beating the 49ers, so you're going to get your wish next week.
Okay.
And the good news is, at the end of all of this, it's an 11-win season for the Buccaneers, right? And I made these predictions before the season. I'm writing them out, even though, I didn't have a crystal ball for all these injuries, but I still feel like everything's in front of the Buccaneers. They still have had the lead in the NFC South since week 1. Here we are entering week 5. They still have the lead. They're still a game ahead of Atlanta.
It's crazy the Saints haven't won a game.
Multiple games against the Saints and the Panthers. So you still feel pretty good about this. And even with the loss in Seattle, and let's hope I'm wrong, I still feel like there are winnable games down the stretch here, and I don't think this team's going to have another 0-4 slide. Okay. I think they'll come back, and each year they've lost to the 49ers. The margin's gotten closer and closer. It took a walk-off field goal at the end to beat the Buccaneers last year, 23-20 at Raymond James Stadium, and that was without Mike and Chris. And, of course, there was no Emeka Egbuka, so I like the Bucs' chances of beating the 49ers. That's for next week's show, though. But this is going to be a tough game in Seattle. This is a 3-1 Seattle team that already has 7 interceptions. 7. The Bucs have 1. They're fifth in run defense, 89.8 yards per game allowed. They're 6th in scoring offense, nearly 28 points per game. And we talked about it. They get off to hot starts. They're averaging 8.8 points per game in the first quarter. That's second best in the league. The Bucs are way down towards the back end at 3.3. Tampa Bay cannot afford to get off to a slow start. The other thing too that concerns me, the Seahawks are the second least penalized team in the league, averaging only 5 per game. Tampa Bay is closer to 10. They're around 8 penalties per game, and penalties have been a problem for the Buccaneers. Untimely penalties. So those are some things to watch for in this week's game.
So the
Seahawks are hot.
Just to officially confirm, then that means, Scott, you're picking obviously the Seahawks to win. Aileen,
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to, for the sake of breaking the juju, and my choices last week, I'm going to say the opposite of what I said to see if that works. So I think the Seahawks will win.
Oh, you're both
and then
so killing me.
I will not speak on week 6.
The good news, I guess, is that if the Seahawks do lose, I can at least hang my hat on Scott Reynolds being a savant, basically, on being able to pick these games, a wizard, if you will, and maybe that does mean an 11-win season. But now, actually, I'm a little conflicted because if the Seahawks lose and the Bucs win, that means Scott's wrong, and then maybe it's not an 11-win season. See, you're killing me. All right, look, I'm going with the Bucs to win because I'm going to pick the Bucs every week. Spoiler alert if you don't know.
Attaboy.
Just going to happen. Right. And you know what? Before we go, Scott, let's talk about Reagan, how good you are picking these games. And if people want to go and find those picks, let's talk about where they can find you.
Yeah, we're at pewterreport.com. We also have 4 podcasts a week on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. You can follow us on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report.
I love Pewter Report.
Oh, we do. I love Pewter Report. I've been reading it since before I met Scott. So, just a little shout out. Thank you, guys. It's been a fantastic episode of Bucs Bonus. We're going to look forward to, hopefully, a winning game over in Seattle. And if not, if they don't win, at least, Scott Reynolds himself said that means an 11-win season. So take it with what you will. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of Bucs Bonus. We'll see you next week to talk about, hopefully, a Bucs win.